Just say the word and I'll throw a lasso around it and pull it down.
Put that coffee down.
I'm a British nanny, and I'm dangerous.
It don't matter if you win by an inch or a mile. Winning's winning.
That was totally wicked!
It's the Al Travis Show, and our next guest, he is the president of the American Experiment. He's John Hinderaker. Love having him on. John, how are you, my friend?
Hey, doing great, Al.
I absolutely love just quick side note, because it showed up in my mail yesterday. The latest issue of Thinking Minnesota, State of Waste. Minnesota needs a Doge. You got to read it. Pick it up. You guys who said that's how you and I got started. People want to know, folks new to the program. I don't remember 5 years ago. I don't know how long we've been doing this, John. I get this Thinking Minnesota sent to me, and I don't know why. I got a copy, and I'm like, wow, this is fantastic. If you want to know what's going on in Minnesota and you want to have the proof behind it, what I like is everything's, got the backup material. I fell in love with it. I called your guys and said, hey, you want to do this on the air? We've been doing this now for 3, 4, 5 years, whatever it's been. I love Thinking Minnesota. Nice job, my friend.
Well, thank you so much, Al. Yeah, the new issue is out, and it focuses on the budget crisis that we're now living through here in Minnesota. And we have the DFLers who want to raise the sick tax, the raise on all medical and dental services by 11% in order to pay for health care for illegal aliens. It is really a remarkable moment in Minnesota history.
Well, and we'll talk some of those. It is quite remarkable that the governor's budget wants to cut $1 million, $100 million out of the health care for seniors, Medicare, Medicaid, that's his budget. But I mean, he's using it to scare people. But at the same time, this health care, Minnesota Care for illegal immigrants to the state of Minnesota, which is said that it might be 5,000 of them, $17,600 million so far. This has only been up for 3 months. This is nuts. And you could just say, we don't have to cut Medicare to Minnesotans if we just don't give free medicine to people who aren't supposed to be here. This doesn't sound hard, but they'll die on this sword, won't they?
Well, we'll see, Al. We'll see if they've got the votes. They're certainly trying their hardest. It's baffling, like so much that's going on right now.
How do people know that, though? This is what gets me, is you can do such things if the paper of record or the newscasts aren't putting it that easily. They don't tie the two together. There's the governor trying to cut $100 million, saying, look what bad Republicans want to do. It's like, wait a minute. Here, I can find that money right now if you just stop giving illegal immigrants health care in Minnesota. You know what I'm saying? That isn't how it comes out.
The way to know what's going on is to go to AmericanExperiment.org. We have fresh content on our website daily. And also, if you go to AmericanExperiment.org, you can sign up for our twice a week and sometimes 3 times a week emails. And that's how you really can keep up with what's going on. You mentioned the newspaper of record. I assume somewhat tongue in cheek there. That would be Minnesota. Now, Minnesota Star-Tribune, well, they brag that they have 100,000 online subscribers. American Experiment has 200,000 online. So, if you want to know what's going on, join the 200,000 and sign up for our emails at AmericanExperiment.org.
And I get them, and they're, again, it isn't overdone. You get the right information. I got to ask you, I'm changing my mind at something, and I hate to do that, but on like Monday or something, we found out that Mary Moriarty, the DA out of Minneapolis, basically said this guy, Dylan Adams, was going to be in the diversion program. If you don't know Dylan Adams' name, he's just a young man who keyed a few Teslas, and good gosh, we don't want to send him to prison, for heaven's sake, so we'll use the diversion program. And on Monday, I'm like, okay, I don't see kids going to, prison for keying a car, but what are we going to do? I changed my mind. Now it comes out. He's 33 years old. He works for the Department of Human Services. He's a full-grown man, and it is 6. In a couple of nights spree, he has keyed 6. This wasn't I can't control myself, and he keyed, and he went out and did it 6 times on 6 Teslas, $21,000 worth of damage. This program was set up for generally $5,000 or less in damage. Name one reason why this guy isn't getting in trouble. And they say they don't want people to lose their jobs. Governor Walz should tell, hey, Department of Human Services, I don't want this guy on the team. Is that hard?
it turns out, of course, Mary Moriarty is notorious for not wanting to prosecute anybody. She's been very, very controversial. She ran as a soft on crime county attorney, and that's exactly what she is. But it's come out, Al, that just last week she did prosecute a woman who keyed one car and did $7,000 worth of damage, but it wasn't a Tesla. So what she's doing here, this is a form of Democratic Party activism, vandalizing Teslas, firebombing Tesla dealerships. This is Democratic Party activism. And so the signal she's sending is normally if you do malicious damage through vandalism, you will be prosecuted. Now you won't go to prison, but you'll be prosecuted. However, if you damage Teslas, it is open season because that is Democratic Party activism that she wants to encourage.
Out of curiosity, because I don't really know this, so if they're not going to do restitution, what happens to the guy who got the 10 grand damage on his car? Obviously, insurance. If it's Al, I have to then eat that. I don't get paid back my deductible. I have to eat the difference. Right? I mean, is that what I'm getting? These poor slups, they have Teslas. These 6 individuals are all individually hurt. And basically she's saying, suck it up, Buttercup. This guy doesn't deserve to be penalized or.
Yeah, no, that's her position. Now, she's actually taking some heat on this. It's kind of ironic, She should be taking a lot more heat for the way she's treated murderers and other really serious criminals. But here it's so blatant when she prosecutes the woman who did much less damage to one car, and she doesn't prosecute the guy who keyed 6 Teslas and did 3 times as much damage. The political bias there is just too obvious to ignore. And it may be that there'll be enough heat that she will change her mind.
Well, like you say, it sends up the bat signal saying, well, if it's a Tesla, you do what you got to do. Real quickly, I don't know if you watched the State of the State last night. I mentioned in the program, he had an opportunity, the governor did. Find those things you think are positive Minnesota, show how we're going forward. If you want to say, we got a 67, 60. I think there's a way for him to make this a positive thing, or at least try to. It wasn't very long, 30 minutes. But he spent most of his time telling how Orange Man bad and what Orange Man has done terrible to Minnesota. It's like he doesn't understand he's been governor for 6 years. Orange Man's been in 90 days. And it's like he's upset the apple cart. Do you think that played at all in Minnesota? I mean, I'm not an idiot.
Well, I don't think so, Al. I mean, the fact is that Minnesota is on a very bad path. We're falling behind economically. Our per capita GDP, the basic measure of economic well-being, we're now below average. When we started Tim Walz's term, 6 years ago, we were actually well above average in per capita GDP. We're now below average. We are a below average state, and that has happened entirely on Tim Walz's watch. We used to be a low crime state. Well, now our serious crime rate per 100,000 population is above the national average. So Tim Walz has presided over Minnesota going from being a low crime state to being a high crime state. Education, we keep throwing more and more and more money at our public schools, and our results keep getting worse and worse and worse. Test results continue to slide. And so, we've got some serious problems in this state, and Donald Trump didn't cause them.
Okay. But what's killing me, so you list that stuff off the top of your head, for heaven's sakes, about what's going on. But this man is saying, leaning toward running for a 3rd term because, of course, what a great job he's done. We'll talk about that a little bit on the other side. I want to talk about, you talked about education, the story today on your AmericanExperiment.org. Minnesota Department of Ed will not comply with the federal DEI rules, which will cost us money, and they're going to say evil man did it. And you guys were the ones who put out this Keith Ellison tape. He just won't shush up about it. He's back there talking about it more, and it makes it more complicated, not less. We'll talk about those 2 things coming up after this with American Experiment's John Hinderaker.
All the special interests are represented in St. Paul, but who speaks for you? Center of the American Experiment does. Our policy fellows dig into the tough issues that matter to you and offer common sense solutions on education, taxes, crime, and energy. American Experiment is the trusted, nonpartisan voice of Minnesotans like you. We are working every day to make Minnesota a better, safer, more prosperous place. We are American Experiment. Go to AmericanExperiment.org to learn more.
Dust from livestock buildings can be harmful to your animals and to you. Coughing animals can lead to costly vet visits and other serious health problems. Now there's an environmentally safe solution for your dust problems. It's called Dust Lock. Dust Lock can control the dust all summer long with just one application. Protect your animals and your health with Dust Lock. Learn more at dustlock.com.
Amongst friends, the Al Travis Show. Nothing but talk.
John Hinderaker, President of the United American Experiment with me. Here's my question for you. In the Walz's speech last night, he mentioned that Orange Man bad, that without the Department of Education, the special needs children of our schools could be hurt, yada, yada. And I'm thinking to myself, well, we have a Minnesota Department of Education who could help our special needs kids continue to get what they're getting. We have each school board. The idea that only a national company can make sure your kids are treated well if they have special needs, I don't get it. But then in the story today, Minnesota Department of Education will not comply with federal DEI rules, which will cost them money. I believe Trump will do what he says, that you keep doing that, we won't send federal funds. Well, then they're going to blame Orange Man bad. Here are the rules. Don't teach this, you get your money. How is that on Orange Man?
Well, I think the important thing to understand, first of all, is that the federal government is a very small player in school finance.
Yeah.
Schools are financed overwhelmingly at the local level, secondarily at the state level. The feds play a very, very small role. They do contribute a little money, but it's a small piece of the picture. Now, as far as the DEI is concerned, the Trump administration is taking the position, I think correctly, that it is illegal under the Civil Rights Act, if you're a private organization, and under the Equal Protection Clause of the 14th Amendment, if you're a public body like Minnesota's public schools. And that was the holding of the U.S. Supreme Court in the University of North Carolina and Harvard lawsuits, which had decided a year or so ago. That was all about DEI. It was all about affirmative action. It was all about favoring one race over another race. And the Supreme Court said, you can't do that. Race discrimination is illegal. It doesn't matter which race you're discriminating against. In those cases, it happened to be Asians and whites, but the Supreme Court said you can't discriminate against any race. And DEI is all about favoring one race over another in employment and promotion and in the schools in curriculum. And we see this in spades in Minnesota, where we have this ethnic studies requirement, which is now being implemented. If you read what is in that law and what was in the framework that Governor Walz's committee came up with, which was so radical, the Department of Education has said, we're actually not going to implement this.
Yeah.
They got to come up with a different one. It's all about condemning students who are of one race and promoting students who are of a different race. This is illegal. And that's what the Trump administration is trying to enforce.
You can get that whole story at the American Experiment.org. The other thing I really want to hit on, because we'll never do it in the next 3.5 minutes, but Keith Ellison came out to clear up what was going on with these now 2 audio tapes that came up, and it, I don't know if it cleared anything up, if it didn't make it foggier, but you and your organization, that Bill Glahn, he's a superstar. He has been covering this thing from top to bottom. You guys are doing an event just to talk about this, right? To bust this down for people?
Yeah, that's right. Bill Glahn has really driven reporting on Feeding Our Future from the beginning. He and I have done, I think, 4 webinars so far on Feeding Our Future. We're doing another one tomorrow, which is specifically about Keith Ellison's involvement in the scandal. And if you go to AmericanExperiment.org, you can register for that webinar. It's free. It's over the noon hour tomorrow. And what happened, of course, is that we obtained 2 audio tapes of Keith Ellison. In the first one, it goes on for about an hour, and he's meeting with a number of people associated with Feeding Our Future, one of whom has now been criminally convicted, another of whom is awaiting trial on criminal fraud charges. And he says some really interesting things. He goes along with their claim that the Minnesota Department of Education is racist and is discriminating against these East African small businesses. That's how they put it. He agrees with that. He says he'll look into it. And at one point he says, let's fight this together. That is, what they're trying to fight is the Department of Education trying to turn off the spigot when hundreds of millions of dollars are going out in outright fraud. And, as you know, some 40 people have now either been convicted or pled guilty. The biggest fraud, the biggest crime that came out of that whole COVID era. And then 9 days after he had this meeting with the Feeding Our Future people, he had a fundraiser where they contributed money to him and to his son. And so, this is a story, and we broke it. And anybody that goes to our website, if you have to find it, it's in a post, can listen to that tape in its entirety. Then there's a second audio recording where Ellison is talking, and he contradicts things that he said in the first one. The second one actually predates by about 6 months the long recording. The short one is 6 months earlier, but it was the second one to come out. And Ellison contradicts himself, and he's continued to contradict himself in the public statement that he put out, and then in the op-ed that he wrote for the Minneapolis or Minnesota Star Tribune, where he says that he knows nothing about this. He was just as surprised as anybody else when the FBI raided all these people back in 2021.
I'll tell you what, Bill Glahn, like say, is just on this Feeding Our Futures thing. This all will come down to who knew what, when, and where, right? When did the Minnesota Department of Education tell Ellison's group, the AG, hey, we got the federal government coming? I presume the second the federal government calls the commissioner of the MDA, he's got to be getting a hold of our attorney, and then we know whether he's saying, I have no idea what this was going on at the time. I mean, it's who knew what and when and where, right? Is that going to whether it comes down?
Yeah, I don't know. Bill Glahn might be able to answer some of these questions. There was communication at some point between the FBI and the Attorney General's office. I'm not sure exactly when that was. At one point, one of his excuses that Keith Ellison has used is that the FBI told him not to do anything, which I think is just absurd.
Well, you can get caught up completely. It'll be a great use of your lunch hour. Go to AmericanExperiment.org. Go to events, the live stream. You'll see it under events, live stream. Hit that. It costs nothing to sign up. It's tomorrow at noon. I've talked with Bill Glahn on this show about all this. There is no better expert on what's going on, except possibly you, boss man, Mr. Hinderaker. But this guy knows what he's talking about. You guys are going to have a great seminar. And if I get you back here next week, which I hope we will, we got to talk about Scott Jennings come to your annual event. That's within the next month. And Scott Jennings is hilarious. Yeah.
May 17. Again, you can get tickets at AmericanExperiment.org.
Thank you, my friend.
All the special interests are represented in St. Paul, but who